Hello and welcome. This documentary will be centred around the slender-tailed meerkats. Although these small animals are from southern Africa, this information will be based on some a bit further away from their natural habitat, Camperdown Zoo in Dundee. Topics like welfare, behaviour, diet and regulations will be covered throughout, but firstly we will speak about the foundations of all zoo welfare. The 5 freedoms originate from the 1964 book called Animal Machines by Ruth Harrison. It was originally based on the welfare of livestock in farms. In 1965, Harrison's initial information was developed by Roger Bramble in the report of the Technical Committee to inquire into the welfare of animals kept under intensive livestock husbandry systems. This promoted the 5 freedoms: freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury or disease, freedom to express normal behaviour, freedom from fear and distress. The legalisations made in the 60s set the foundation for today's legalisations, which have since been built upon to develop and change with the needs and new information which have been discovered. 2 important legalisations that this has evolved from, one being the Animal Welfare Scotland Act 2006. This act places a responsibility of care on owners and others responsible for animals to make sure that the welfare needs are met. This includes animals such as mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians and fish. Another prominent legalisation in zoos is the Zoo Licensing Act 1981. Zoos require a licence and must be managed in accordance with the standards of modern zoo practice, which includes details of how to keep and care for animals. Zoos licensed under the Zoo Licensing Act 1981 are inspected regularly. There are 2 types of inspections: periodic inspections. These are undertaken when a licence is in existence. An inspection for a new licence takes place one during the first year and again at the end of the 4th year. For a renewed licence, an inspection is carried out once in its 3rd year and then again at the end of its 6th year. 3 inspectors will carry out the inspection, one of them being a vet. The second type of inspection is called a special inspection. This may be undertaken by the local authority if it considers it necessary to do so because of feedback from a periodical report, or if the zoo has been flagged up for any negative reason. The inspection will be by a person authorised by the local authority to do so. If it relates to the health of the animal, there must be a vet with experience of animals kept in zoos present. These inspections can be carried out at any point. The inspectors will look at health, welfare and the safety of public and animals, including measures for prevention of escape, and the recordings kept under any site condition. There are many voluntary organisations from around the world that govern and oversee zoos in certain parts of the world, but WAZA oversees zoos and aquariums worldwide. WAZA, which stands for the World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, founded in 1935. The goal of WAZA has been to guide, encourage and support zoos and aquariums and like-minded organisations of the world in animal care and welfare, environmental education and global conservation. BIAZA, which stands for British and Irish Association of Zoos and Aquariums, a professional body representing the best zoos and aquariums in Britain and Ireland. They represent over 100 zoos and aquariums and concentrate on the 3 main pillars of zoos: research, education and conservation work. EAZA, the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria. It was set up in 1988 to represent zoos in the EU and countries bordering the EU. It represents 335 zoos in 41 countries. EAZA's 4 main goals are planning and coordinating wildlife conservations, promoting education about zoos and the environment, contributing to discussion at an international level. AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. This is a US-based association and one of the largest with over 6,000 members. Only 250 are accredited zoo members. AZA was founded in 1924 with its main mission to promote animal care and welfare, conservation, education, research, and encourage respect for the natural world. They also contribute by publishing policies, guidelines, and codes of practice that support the work of members and promote professional high standards. The role of a keeper is based around 3 key things: education, conservation, and research. The daily duties include cleaning, preparing food and feeding, also maintaining the enclosure's safety and observing the animal's welfare, behaviour and spotting any physical or mental changes. A keeper's education is never over, as the animals are constantly changing and evolving, so keeping up to date with training and research of the species is important. A keeper's role may change depending on the collection they are working with. Zoo record keeping is one of the most important things to keep up to date in a zoo, as the information they contain is used to monitor individual animals and the population of the animal. ZIMS, which stands for Zoological Information Management System, is the main system used to keep records. This is a global record-keeping database that includes over 2.5 million animals and 15,000 species. Plants are also included in the database. This system enables a more accurate observation of animal conservation, captive breeding, and managing the population of each species. A stud book is created for species identified as at risk, and it contributes to help the breeding program. They record the details of each individual animal on the program, for example, its sex, date of birth, and full ancestry. A more specialised breeding program is the European Endangered Species Program, EEP, founded in 1985, issues zoos with mandatory breeding recommendations in order to keep genetic diversity as high as possible, to avoid inbreeding and develop a European population independent from the wild. Welfare assessments are designed to identify welfare concerns within a zoo's specific species or for a collection of animals. The assessment can be used as a monitoring and evaluation tool and can be used to generate recommendations for improvements. Indicators of good welfare in a particular animal enclosure is assessed using 5 main categories with subcategories within them. Environment. This includes the enclosure's design and space, including vertical and floor space. The species' basic enclosure needs, enough space for social interaction, shelter, hygiene, not too much environmental noise, appropriate temperature and humidity, appropriate feeding design so the food isn't too high or low, and the food is provided in a sheltered, protected area. Also, a good social environment is required, including things such as appropriate social grouping and interactions provided. For example, animals that need to be kept solitary or in a group or single-gendered enclosure. Nutrition indications include being provided the correct diet and water supply. Health indicators cover the animal's body condition, so if the animal is in the correct weight or is there any abnormalities of the animal's body. Also, if there are any visible injuries. Behaviour evaluates the range and variety of the animal's behaviours. If there's enrichment provided to work the animals, natural behaviours and positive behaviours. Finally, animal care, which assesses the keeper's monitoring, knowledge of the animal and enclosure, and if there is being health care provided. There is also an assessment to check the welfare of a whole animal collection. This is assessed in 5 basic categories. The environment, which includes the quality and how appropriate the enclosure is, also the barriers and how secure it is. Nutrition and if there are appropriate food and food hygiene. Health and if veterinary care is being provided. Behaviour and the animal's mental state. All of these welfare standards need to be met. If not, then it could be seen as poor welfare and the zoo could be sent a warning to improve the standards or even shut the zoo collection down depending on the severity. The diet a meerkat has in captivity is kept similar to what they would have in the wild, as meerkats are opportunistic feeders and will consume their body weight in food a day, and prefer insects like crickets, grasshoppers, caterpillars, termites, spiders and beetles, but they will also consume reptiles like small lizards and snakes, also scorpions, small birds, eggs, small rodents, plants like roots and tubers, also fruit and seeds. They will spend up to 8 hours foraging for these foods throughout the day. To acquire their food, they will dig in the ground to find their prey of insects, snails, rodents, eggs, lizards and scorpions. They use their keen sense of smell and quick digging skills to capture their prey. The naturally occurring amino acid taurine is one of the most important components of a meerkat's diet, as without taurine it can cause an enlarged heart which causes symptoms such as an irregular heartbeat, fainting, cardiac arrest or sudden death. Sources of taurine in a meerkat's diet can be obtained by a form of cat food, mice, or taurine dietary supplement. In Camperdown, a specially made meerkat pellet is given called Zoo Diet A. Within the meerkat mob in Camperdown, the meerkat with a green dye on its bum was showing these symptoms, and it was shown in a scan that it had a heart abnormality that is suspected to be an enlarged heart, as that is a common condition with meerkat hearts. Medication and dietary changes will be carried out to stop the progression of the condition. The captive diet meerkats are fed consists of fruit, veg, insects, a specific made meerkat pellet, mice and chicks. The food is presented on the floor or at a low level, so it is easily accessible. A cafeteria-style feeding method is used. This is where a variety of foods are offered. The meerkats in Camperdown get this feeding type in the morning. The food included normally is fruits, vegetables, insects like mealworms, crickets, and food pellets called Zoo Diet A, which is a specially made diet with all the nutrition that specific animal would need. The food would be given in a cafeteria style, so the animal would get all the nutrition it would get in the wild from many different food sources, giving variety and even enrichment from the different textures of each food and the different ways to eat them. Also, scatter feeding is used, where keepers will scatter mealworms. Scatter feeding is used as in the wild they would grab and eat food from the floor, encouraging them to compete for their share of food and forage for it in a wider spread area. A chick or a mouse will be given to each meerkat a day. Stereotypic behaviours are defined as repetitive, habitual behaviour patterns with no obvious function. Where wild meerkats would fill their time with activities such as hunting, searching for food and water or shelter, protecting their territory, or searching for a mate, captive animals very often are provided with all of these. If they are kept alone or in the wrong social grouping, they are prone to developing stereotypical behavioural problems such as pacing, head bobbing, over-grooming and self-harm. Behaviours that they present in captivity is over-familiarity with keepers and will approach them for food and will approach the barriers as a group when keeper or public come near as they connect that with being fed. Giraffes in captivity are confined to smaller enclosures when in the wild they have wide open spaces, so this can lead to extreme frustration and boredom. Captive giraffes often exhibit abnormal behaviours such as repetitively twisting their necks or licking the bars of their cage when they have experienced prolonged periods of poor welfare. Tigers that are in captivity that are unable to freely move, denied a rich social life, causes stressful behaviour that includes pacing, head bobbing, rocking, walking in circles, compulsive licking, bar biting, and even self-mutilation. One of the main methods used to combat uncharacteristic behaviours is various kinds of enrichment, physical, mental, and environmental. Habitat. Making the enclosure around close to the natural habitat in the wild, with the right plants, substrate, temperature, and enclosed and open areas, also changing the enclosure around to create differences in their environment, as there will be constant changes in the wild. This prevents boredom. Food. Making food part of daily enrichment encourages zoo animals to forage and work for their meals, creating excitement and a challenge, just like they would in the wild. Sensory. Sense and sound encourage animals to explore their habitats and have multiple senses stimulating them as they would in the wild. Using natural predator or prey scents can be sprinkled on the ground or sprayed on a log for an animal to investigate. Cognitive. Stimulating the animal's minds, allowing animals to problem solve, learn and try new activities. This allows them to learn new skills as they would in the wild naturally. But enrichment can only tackle stereotypic behaviours when it removes the root cause of these behaviours. Hand rearing is used for the well-being of the mother and the young. This is why hand rearing should be avoided and only done if medically necessary. Hand rearing can affect their behaviour and social behaviour with their own species. It will not learn survival skills from the parent, such as feeding and mating, making reintegration into a zoo collection or back into the wild near impossible. Also, it is more likely to pick up infection and suffer from malnutrition, as it will not have mother's milk and colostrum. The colostrum protects the young from infection, and the mother's milk produces the correct amount it needs and provides all necessary nutrients. Other issues that may arise is the young could also imprint on the keeper or whoever is hand rearing, so it won't identify as the species it is, and this will also cause difficulty integrating back into its group or the wild. All of these challenges are faced when hand rearing meerkats. Infant meerkats would be fed on a formula of puppy milk that's high in fat and calories. They will be fed every 3 hours, and at 8 weeks will start being weaned onto solids. The enrichment that was chosen was hollowed out pumpkins with various entry holes for the meerkats to explore and enter. The pumpkins are filled with mealworms and crickets. This enrichment was chosen because it introduces a new food item of the pumpkin that would not normally be a part of the meerkat's diet. This will introduce new texture, smells and taste, with the added incentive of the mealworms and locusts that will encourage them to enter the pumpkins. Also, the meerkat's feeding behaviour around a new enrichment can be monitored. This ethogram is showing the data gathered pre-enrichment for the slender-tailed meerkats. It shows the majority of their time is spent digging, which is a natural behaviour they would spend a lot of their time doing in the wild. The hypothesis is predicting what might happen in the results of the after-enrichment ethogram. This is a welfare sheet of the slender-tailed meerkats with data gathered from Camperdown Zoo. Food and water. They are fed 3 times a day with a mixture of fruit, vegetables, specialised meerkat pellets called Zoo Diet A that is specifically meeting the meerkat's nutritional needs like taurine that is necessary. They are also fed insects including things like mealworms, locusts. They are also fed a chick or a mouse each day. Safe hiding places. This is provided through an inside hut, an outside heated wooden cover, also rocks and logs. Enough space. There is enough space outside and inside for the 14 meerkats to act out natural behaviours and have space away from the mob if needed. Away from predators. There are walls around the enclosure to stop meerkats getting out and protect them, but also stop any threats getting inside. Also, there is an inside hut space to protect them from any overhead threats. Enrichment. In the enclosure, there are many things to fulfill enrichment for the meerkats, such as natural materials like the dirt they use to dig and forage, rocks and wooden logs to climb on. Even the food they're fed and the way they are fed can be enrichment. Mimic natural behaviour. Natural behaviour is being enabled and encouraged. The meerkats being in a large mob of 14 allows them to play out natural group behaviours like grooming each other, having only one breeding pair. Having high up viewpoints encourages one meerkat to be on sentry, to look out for threats, and having a sand substrate allows the natural digging instinct. Lastly, veterinary care is readily available, but the keepers are checking for any physical and mental changes daily. One meerkat in particular has been colour-coded with a green stain, so extra vigilance is kept due to its regular passing out. The behaviour that was expressed during the enrichment was expected, and some was a surprise. The increase in feeding by 17% and an increase in foraging by 20%. These increases was an expected outcome as food was being provided inside the pumpkins. There was also increased vocalisation by 6%, as the meerkats were keeping in contact and claiming dominance over their food. There was a decrease in digging by 45% due to the enrichment distracting the meerkats from their normal instinctive duties. A surprising ethogram finding was during the enrichment, no one was on sentry duty for long periods of time. In the wild, even when feeding, there would always be someone on sentry duty. This means some of the meerkats' wild instincts have been slightly changed due to captivity life, with them feeling safe and secure in their surroundings, and not needing someone on guard. Even though there was no one on sentry duty during the feeding, they still reacted to birds overhead like they would in the wild by fleeing as a group to somewhere of protection. The enrichment had a positive outcome for the slender-tailed meerkat's welfare, as it provided mental stimulation from the task to obtain the food from inside a pumpkin, which replicates the challenge they would have daily in the wild to get food. If the enrichment was repeated, less pumpkins would be used to not overwhelm the meerkats and to create more mob competition for food to see the behaviours produced, as the captive meerkats are used to being provided with equal amounts of food for each. Also, the mealworms and locusts should be added before the pumpkins are put into the enclosure, so the meerkats don't witness the food being put in the pumpkins and provides more of a problem-solving task for the meerkats to get the food.
The green lobster.
It's a Rastafarian meerkat.
It's a matted, then one's got green on its bum.
Yeah, it's hard.